structure a little bit. First little bit, you'll be listening to me. Then we'll get into you guys training, and you can all do your own thing and get some feedback from me and whatnot. So, yeah, get comfortable. I'm going to talk for about an hour, and we'll go through structure in a second, but we'll just wait. We're going to try this on live stream. The only bits on live stream are just going to be me talking here. If you definitely don't want to be on that, then if I ask you to come up and do something, just say no. And then the rest will be not on live stream, not put anywhere. We'll go from there. You get to start whenever? Amazing. Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for coming, guys. This is the first thing I've ever done in Barrie. I don't really do much in my hometown because it's nice to just be me. But it's awesome to have you guys out here and give a little back. To highlight some of the people here, we've got the LHPK booth. That's my clothing brand. To me, lifting weights doesn't really matter, but it's what can you do with any sort of platform you get from that, and everyone having the ability to lift weights. And I think wearing that stuff puts a really good message out there. So that booth is there. Longevity is here, and Chelsea. So you guys hear me talking about injuries and stuff all the time. And to give a bit of my background, I have my undergraduate in human kinetics, master's degree in clinical exercise physiology. And I got into strength sports because I wanted to relate to people who were injured or had chronic conditions that I was seeing professionally. And it just turned into something crazy. But I still have the clinic, and we still have the clinic. So any injuries, anything that doesn't feel like it's moving correctly, I'll be here to help you. But Chelsea's a really good resource as well. That clinic is downtown Barrie. We've got Supplement King coming out to support. So if you guys need any supplements in the interim, heading over to them would be awesome. Big thank you to them for supporting the event. And yeah, we've got some of my sponsors hopped on board. So you'll see NeuroGum kicking around, Ketones kicking around, Mutant Supplements. We've got a whole bunch of prize pack giveaways and stuff. We're doing a silent auction for a shirt from World's Strongest Man. We're also doing a bit of a raffle. Those things, 100% of whatever comes from that is going just straight back to causes where we donate money back. We've done it for kids with cancer, for people competing, for amateur strongmen traveling to go do stuff, but just stuff to support the local strength community and strength community at large. So structure of today, we're going to go 1 hour, just talk the basics of squat, bench, deadlift. Whether you're here because you want to be World's Strongest Man one day or because you just want to lift heavy and you're feeling old, the good thing is those are the same things. It's how can we use as much muscle as possible, as efficiently as possible without over-relying on anything. And if we learn both of those things, you can lift extremely heavy safely, and you can lift somewhat heavy safely and age really well, whether that's performance or health. The only thing I forgot, sorry, after the seminar, we're going to have open gym for a couple of hours, finish the day with Q&A, but really, you can ask me anything anytime. That's why I'm here. We also have our arm wrestling friends. That table's at the back. You can go ahead and learn from them, hop on the table, have some fun, challenge each other, whatever you'd like. So that's the structure of today, and that's what we'll be doing. So without further ado, let's kick into the seminar portion of it. Again, 101 of squat, bench, and deadlift. Do you want to start live stream? Live stream's on. What's up, guys? How good? Totally soared. All right. Shame. Okay. First things first. Let's start with the deadlift. This is the number one most important exercise to be able to learn because it's highest injury risk, but also the one that you have to learn to be able to do fundamental movement pattern of life. And those are 6 movements, which are push, pull, squat, hinge, overhead press, and carry. If you can do those 6 things, you're doing really well. If you can't do those 6, you have to figure out how to do those 6. And hinge is one of the most difficult. So this is one of the most important things you're ever going to learn in health, fitness, exercise, and it's how to brace your core properly. I've done a number of videos on this, but it's useful to go through this progression in person. Now, you guys know how we wear weightlifting belts when we lift heavy? Yeah, that's not to brace your back or to provide any support. That's just something for you to be able to push into. But pushing into that is a skill that very few people know how to do well. So there are 2 ways that you can breathe. Your lungs are just passive tissues that are stuck to your chest wall and stuck to your diaphragm. Now, if you contract your diaphragm, your lungs passively move down. If you contract your intercostal muscles, your ribs come up and your lungs come outwards. We're really used to breathing with our lungs coming outwards, not so used to breathing with our diaphragm and our lungs coming down. Now, to brace our core, that's the first thing we have to learn how to do. So if everyone right now could put one hand on their chest, one hand on their stomach, this is a really useful skill. I want you to breathe and have this bottom hand move out, like you're making a big fat belly, and the top hand stay totally still. Okay, so big breath in. Okay, and you should have a big belly. Yeah, if you put squatting, deadlifting Instagram videos up, you should look fat and a bit sloppy. Just is what it is. Yeah. Okay. Once we get that feeling, the second bit that now I'd say 50% of people understand that concept. This is something that very few people at all understand. If you put your fingers on your hips, everyone exists with this little arch in their back. And if you have the arch in your back, it's very hard to breathe into your back as well as your fronts. And if we think of this whole section as a pressure canister, and we've got too much energy going out the front, well, there's not enough energy coming in the back. And so all we're doing is pushing forward, promoting this movement, which runs into problems, which we'll talk about when we go into squatting, okay? But if we have our hands on our hips, we need to get used to tucking yourself under just slightly. And if you tuck yourself under slightly, that's gonna open space in your back for you to be able to breathe into your back. And if we do these two things together, you should feel almost this distraction pressure, like you're hanging from a bar when you breathe and brace. So we're gonna breathe into our stomach as we tilt our hips forward and breathe into our back at the same time. You don't have to think breathe into your back, you have to think hips tilt forward, we're breathing into our stomach, and then we brace, which I'll talk about in a second. But let's do that together, hands on the hips. We're gonna take a big breath into the stomach, tilt the hips forward slightly, and that is how we're gonna breathe. So big breath. Okay, and from there, that's a really strong position to start. Okay, now when it comes to the actual bracing process itself, we've got the top, the bottom, and everything in between with our core. The top is our diaphragm. So if we contract down and we don't breathe, our diaphragm will stay down. Cool. The bottom is our pelvic floor. If you don't poo or pee, you're doing well. Yeah. If you do pee, which is a real conversation for people, it is something that can be rectified. Talk to Chelsea. And then from there, we hold our diaphragm, we hold our pelvic floor, and then we push out everywhere as hard as we can. And so my stomach is out, it looks fat, but if you push anywhere, it's all hard and firm. And the objective here is creating this hardest place possible to be able to push through your legs without any compromising in your midsection, not having your chest fold over, and not having pain in your low back. Okay, to give context to this, there are 3 layers of protection for your low back when you're doing hinging movements or squatting movements. First, it's your core bracing, which I've just taught you. Then it's the strength of your spinal erectors, and then it's your soft tissues, your ligaments, your discs, and that's when we can get into injury territory. Now, yes, if you push for performance, you still could get injured, for sure, and I still do get injured, but this is the best way to protect yourself. And if you're going for health side of things, you can protect yourself, lift relatively heavy, get really good results, and be pretty safe, okay? So let's get into the movement itself. I'll chuck a couple of plates on here. Before I go forward, is there any questions about that? Any questions about breathing and bracing? We'll go movement specific after, but is that all making sense? Yeah, cool. All right. So when it comes to deadlifting, the first thing that you have to sort out is where we're going to put our hands on the bar. And remember context. I'm not necessarily teaching you how to lift 1,000 pounds, although this is how you do it. I'm also teaching you how to do this as safe as possible, whether you're 10 or 100 or lifting 500 or lifting 100, okay? The first thing we want to do is make sure that our index finger is directly below our shoulder. That's going to set everything else up for success, okay? Now, the reason we do that is because if we set our hands directly below our shoulder, now there's a straight line between my shoulder and my index finger. If we have that straight line, it means that we're not over-relying on our upper back, not over-relying on our lower back, and you're going to have equal distribution of effort throughout your body, and that is our number one goal. If anyone's ever gone really wide on a deadlift, you know that your upper back takes a big load, you're going to cave over, that exposes you to injury risk, okay? So that's number one thing. The second thing is your feet then just slot in wherever they fit, okay? So you're going to end up with your elbow and your knee in close to each other. Hands are here. I sink down. My knee and my elbow are right beside each other, okay? The only other thing you have to get sorted for a good start position is getting the backside of your shoulder directly over the barbell, okay? If you have a friend stand beside you, they'll be able to see this, and you can almost self-regulate this as well. If you're sat too far back and you pull up, you're going to launch yourself over the top of the bar. If you're set too far forward and you pull up, the bar is going to swing away from you, okay? Simple as that. Any setup questions there with the deadlift? Okay.
You said your feet just slot in wherever they kind of naturally are. Like
so
that setup.
Yeah. So you get your hands set first, then your feet are going to come in to the place where your elbows are right beside your knees. You don't want them competing for space, and you don't want any space between the two. All right? Yeah.
If you're doing a mixed grip, do you want your pinky to be under your shoulder or straight?
Yes, pinky. Great question. Yeah. Now, if you're doing a mixed grip to save yourself from losing your grip, or you got to fit powerlifting standards, or you don't want to use straps, whatever it is, one really important thing, and it's a very useful tool, one important thing is it's very easy for you to start getting crooked shoulders. And if you get crooked shoulders, of course, that's going to be unequal distribution of the load on your back. When you go to do that, in the first stage, you want to start with your hand straight out in front of you and then work on flipping this hand. Okay? And you see, I can only get that hand to about a 45-degree angle. So how am I going to get that hand open? Well, there's two ways. Either I twist and I twist my body, or I twist my body and then I grab the bar and then I come back. Well, what does that do? It creates a torque on my bicep, and that's when you see biceps popping off. Yeah, so I will never do that exercise for deadlifts ever, because it will probably turn out bad. Yeah, and then that's a mobility issue. And what do we do for mobility issues? We talk to Chelsea. Okay, so that's the setup position for deadlifts. Things that you don't have to think about are like, where is my torso position? How high should my hips be? How low should my hips be? So if we get our hands set, we get our feet set, and the backside of your bar is the backside of your shoulders directly over the bar, there's nowhere else for you to be. That's going to be your position. Now, you'll see some people sit very low in a deadlift, say like Eddie Hall's iconic 500-kilo deadlift, sits his hips really low. And then you might think, okay, well, that's really good deadlift technique. For him, obviously, it works. And then you'll see someone like Ryan Shaw sit his hips a little bit higher. And you're like, whoa, is that good or is that good? It's all individual. And it really does come down to how long are your femurs, how long are your torso, that's it. But there's only one position that you can be in with your feet there, your hands there, and the backside of your shoulders over the bar. Make sense? Okay, this is always going to turn out to be 15 to 45 degrees above parallel. Okay, then when we go up to do this movement as a whole, last setup thing is all of our breathing should be done when our head's above water. Yeah, water at the shoulders. If our head goes lower, we can't breathe anymore. There's a little exception to this, but I'll talk about that in a sec. So we go up to the bar, we're here, we breathe into our stomach, we tilt our pelvis, we brace our hands, we already know where it is because you've already seen that mark on the bar. Your feet fit in, we're not breathing, not breathing, not breathing. Then we pull up. Up here we can breathe, okay? No need to brace. Reason being, the load is pulling directly down on your spine. That's safe, okay? Straight down is safe on your spine. Flexed and forward is not safe. Not safe, as in we need to brace, which then makes it safe, okay? All right, any setup questions? No, does anyone want to run through just a quick 2-minute demonstration for themselves individually for us to have a case study? Yeah, come on. You'll notice that I take my shoes off even when demonstrating deadlifting. That's more of a habit than anything. Yeah, that's all right if you want to. Best practice is Converse, awesome to deadlift in, but the flatter and the thinner the sole, the better. This is, it's on a spectrum. If I was giving like what's A+ advice, I'd say take those off and don't worry about them. But if you're not trying to set world records, leave them on. No big deal. Yeah. But the more cushioned the shoe is, the less stability you're going to have on the ground. And you think, okay, the cushion that a shoe provides for your body weight, compare that to the cushion that's then going to be provided for your body weight plus hundreds of pounds on top of that. It does start to get really shaky, and bracing your feet into the floor is going to be a challenge as you get up and up and you get more particular about your technique. But okay, step number 1, you want to have your hands straight out in front of you. Like this? Yep, just like that. And from there, we're going to take our hands down to the bar and just see where do your index fingers hit the bar. Okay, perfect. And so if we look from the front, okay, anyone looking from the front, go ahead, go back down to that position. Anyone looking from the front, what line do you see from his shoulder to his index finger? Yeah, we're out too far. Okay, bring your hands in slightly. Yeah. Okay, and that's where most people will be, closer than that. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, we're just getting hands set first. Don't worry about feet. Don't worry about anything other than hands. How are we looking from the front? You're still out. You're still out. Go in more. That.
This?
Yes.
I feel like I'm bunched up.
Yeah, good. Okay, stand up. When we feel bunched up at the bottom, what does that mean? Yeah, there's an incredible amount of tension. Like you're ready to go. You're ready to punch into that. You're ready to fire. Okay. That's great. Okay. There are caveats to this, and there's individual variations. So one individual variation that you could run into is your hands are here, perfect spot. Your feet go in perfect spot. Then your hips don't have the mobility. Maybe your knees then flare out, and you're like, I can't even get in there. Yeah. Okay, then we can modify that. How old are you?
I'm 21.
At 21, it's unlikely that your hips are so arthritic that you need to be in that position. Yeah? Yeah. You'll probably be fine. Okay, so hands where they need to be, feet nice and close. Then your knees are going to go forward over the bar until the back of your shoulder is over top the bar directly. Okay, let's just get that start position. Don't worry about lifting anything. Perfect. Cool. Cool. All right, now we can get more nuance with it. Like there, I can see all of your energy is shifted forward. That's more of an individual thing, but that is a perfect start position. Okay. The last thing I want you to do is that bracing component, okay? Yeah. So we're gonna stand up tall. We know where our foot position is roughly. We know where our hand position is gonna be. So you're gonna get your feet set above the bar. We're gonna take that big breath into our stomach. We're gonna tilt our hips slightly forward. We're gonna try to shit ourselves. Don't shit yourself, please. We're gonna go down to the bar.
Well, how much tilting am I doing? I don't want to be like, like.
A little bit. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Okay? But we tilt a little bit. Brace hard. Try to shit yourself. Don't let air out of your lungs, and then you're good to go. Just get into that start position and see how much tension there is at the bottom.
And I breathe at the top.
Yeah, don't lift the bar for now, though. Just go ahead. Get into that position. Okay? Big brace. Good. Hands down. Look at that. That looks so good. That looks so good. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Well, good work. My usual form is,
yeah,
feels a lot better.
Amazing, amazing. Good stuff. Thank you, mate. Good work. Okay, important thing with technical improvements. He says that feels better, and today maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? You may go through some stuff today that feels a little bit awkward, feels strange. The thing about strength training is we're not really training our muscles. We just happen to get big because we're gluttonous and eat lots of food. Yes, there's carryover, but we're training our nervous system to speak to our motor units to create these fluid movements with a lot of power and intent. So even if you're in a better position, if you haven't trained those motor units, you're not going to have the skill to be able to expose that good position. That takes a period of 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, and that's why when you start strength training, people say you're not going to build muscle for 4 to 6 weeks because all you're doing is teaching your nervous system how to do that movements. And when you do this professionally, that's literally my job. Over and over and over, these 4 to 6 weeks of trying to do this, trying to do this, trying to do this, make these small gains, and over time it turns into something special, okay? All right, let's talk about low back when deadlifting, okay? Because that's obviously a major thing. One thing you have to realize is that we have less control of the position of our low back in a deadlift and in a squat than we think, okay? Something like a butt wink or something like flexion in the low back during the deadlift is largely out of your control because it's determined by the flexibility and mobility of your hips, okay? So when they actually do functional MRIs, you look at the low back moving when people are in a position of a squat and a deadlift. Even if you try your hardest, at a certain point, your femur is gonna hit the front of your pelvis and it's gonna rock you. And you really have no ability to stop that. And so the only thing that you can really train is the ability to internally rotate your hips. So a stretch like that, that's gonna help you free up that bottom position to keep a more neutral spine. But by and large, your low back position is gonna be what it is, okay? The important thing is that you brace hard into that so that you have good protection for whatever position you happen to be. The only really bad thing that could happen is you start to pull the bar, you have whatever spine position it is, and then that spine position starts to change. That's what we're trying to stop. That's the big no-no. Make sense? Okay. The only additional thing to talk about with deadlifting, and we haven't even lifted the bar off the ground, this is all start position stuff, is your lats. Okay, your lats and your shoulder position. Your lats. Who thinks your lats' jobs during deadlift is to pull the bar into you? Yeah? Most people are usually taught this. Most strength coaches would probably say this. Nonsense. Think about your max deadlift and think about your ability to move your max deadlift like that. Not going to happen. Yeah, you're not even going to budget. Okay, so your intention with your lats should never be to pull the bar. Talk to me.
To stabilize?
It's to stabilize, but to stabilize your body, not the bar, right? It's not going to move the bar. And so our intention should never be to pull the bar into us. It should never be an intention at the hand. It should be an intention at the shoulder. And the intention at the shoulder is to drive that down into your pocket as best you can. All right? The second thing you're going to do with your shoulder, which I'm the only person who I've ever heard teach this, but it's universally true, is you roll that shoulder forward. Okay? Down and forward. Okay? Well, why? The whole back and down concept of like, this is how you keep safe shoulders. 1, good on bench press. 2, good nowhere else. Literally makes no sense. And you know what, let's just do this quick. Let's talk overhead pressing for 2 seconds. Everyone lock your shoulders back and down and like try to get your arms over your head. Yeah, stupid, doesn't work. Yeah, roll your shoulders forward, put them to your ears, reach over your head. Good, now we all look like gymnasts. The strongest people overhead in the world other than Olympic lifters who look the same, yeah? So shoulders back and down is not this universally true, this will keep you healthy, whatever. I probably was taught that in my master's, but it's silly. Okay, let's think about this position. So remember what I said about low back. We don't have as much control over the position of our low back as we think we do. It's just when our femurs run out of room in our hip socket, and that's going to roll your back. Okay, not the worst thing in the world, but let's try to avoid that position. How can we do that? Well, the only thing I'm going to add to this whole start position sequence is down shoulders, forward shoulders. Okay, let's talk about what effect does that have down here. Well, let's say I pin my shoulders back. Look where my hands are now. How do I get down there? Okay, it's going to be through more like, right? Weird, really weird. Okay, but if I'm here, shoulders are down, shoulders are rolled forward, really long, and I'm reaching towards the bar. Okay, when you're looking at that position from the side, it doesn't take an expert to go like, okay, that looks really strong. And so everyone who deadlifts heavy rolls shoulders forward always, okay? Because what else is going to happen if we pin shoulders back and I'm trying to deadlift 900 or you're trying to deadlift 300 or 100, whatever it is, when it's heavy for you, I don't know anyone with a strong enough mid-back to keep your shoulders pinched back the whole time that you're trying to deadlift. So what's going to happen? You're going to get pulled forward, your spine changes position, we're out of posture. That's when we get hurt, okay? Then when it comes to actually lifting the bar, super simple. It is a leg press, okay? You're as stiff as possible, and then it is a leg press. If you do the first half well, the second half takes care of itself. When you see people here, and they're hitching or they're doing weird stuff, okay, it's because you've lost some sort of position at the bottom. Does this happen at highest levels of performance? Of course. Something has to give, and of course there's going to be some weirdness going on at absolute maximum. If you're training to not perform, to not be a competitive athlete, and you start getting weirdness up here, just stop, okay? Just correct the bottom, get stronger at the bottom, and the rest will take care of itself. Okay, make sense? Yeah. These marks on my shins, they are not reserved for like professional athletes or strongmen or powerlifters or anything. That should be kind of the intention of everybody. It doesn't have to be to that intensity, to that extent, but any bit that bar is away from your body is a disproportionate load on your low back, AKA a disproportionate reliance on your core to do work that it may or may not be prepared to do. Yeah, again, all we're trying to do is eliminate weak links in the chain. That's the entire goal of any sort of strength training, strength sport, anything. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, so for like powerlifting in competition, with the shoulders forward, would that like not, I guess obviously it wouldn't because you're saying that's what it is, but I feel like that would almost kind of be worse for your lockout, or like
sort of.
I think a lot of guys want to see shoulders back at the end of your lockout. So
for sure.
Is that what you want? You want shoulders forward, down, and up, and then you're careening them back kind of afterwards.
Correct.
Them back.
Correct. So let's talk about moments arms. Moments arms are the only way our body feels forces. We don't feel loads or anything. We feel the multiplication of the force, which is the weights multiplied by gravity, and the perpendicular distance to the line of action. Okay. Simply put, if you push a door at the hinges, it's really heavy and hard to move. You push a door at the end, it's very, very easy to move. That's because we have leverage there. Okay. So with the barbell, you think if we are here and our goal is to go from here to here, well, we're doing this movement. What's the resistance to this movement? Like very little comparatively, right? And so the only time you're going to run into issues if you're competitive powerlifting is if you're too narrow and you get like hung up. Okay. But if you're wide enough, now we're in this position, and yes, from here to here, you should be able to do that. Okay. And if you can't, then we talk about performance outcomes of how do we strengthen the upper back, how do we strengthen the mid back to just pull back. But that moment arm, way easier to resist than the moment arm that's real if you're here. Okay. Because now we have this whole moment arm, and now we're being driven forward to have that pulled directly away. So would you rather pull shoulders back when it's here to here, or would you rather pull them back when it's here to here? Okay. Of course.
And then you're already set at the top.
Yeah. Makes it really easy at the top. But
I do have to get way lower to get into that position.
For sure.
Which I always thought was a good thing because, I mean, the Eddie Cohen way, like, you know, hinging, just really, like, getting as much attention at the bottom as possible. I figured that was...
Which is totally true.
Starting the lift with, like, get a lot of power off the get-go.
Yeah, which is totally true. Yeah. Totally true. But if I gave you the choice to maximally deadlift from 9 inches, as the bar is now, or 6 inches, what would you choose if you're trying to lift the most weight possible? If you're deadlifting from 9 inches, or I said I could put a 3-inch mat under you, raise you up 3 inches, you could deadlift from 6 inches, what would you prefer to do? Of course, right? And so we can create that tension and still have the bar at 9 inches and still have our shoulders forward and be a little bit higher up. Same tension, more mechanical advantage, more safety. Yeah. Okay. Make sense? Deadlifting 101. Perfect. Anyone have any other questions? Yeah.
I find I would always haven't heard you say it, so I'm not sure if it's good or not.
Yeah.
I breathe at the bottom, like I get on my knees.
Okay.
I breathe and then stand up.
Yeah.
Because I find if I breathe at the top, then get down, get like in the
yes. Great point.
I'm almost at breath.
Great point. Great point.
Like, can you do it?
Yeah. So question just quick for live stream is, can you breathe when you're down at the bottom? This is particularly applicable if you're putting on straps. We're talking 10, 15 seconds to actually strap up. You don't want to be holding your breath all that time. You're going to pass out. It's going to be bad. So all your goal is get your stomach off your thighs, and then you have space to breathe. If you try to breathe down here, the space just isn't there. If you're me, for sure. If you're you, yes. If you're like one of you girls, maybe it's a little bit easier. Regardless, the more space you have, the better. Okay, so a couple of ways to avoid that. If you want to go on your knees and go up, sure, you can do that. If you want to stay tall on your knees. The problem with that, to me, though, is unless you are perfect and you are very quick at getting your feet underneath, well, we now have this time period. How long do you want to hold your breath? Let's say 3 seconds max. Okay, so now I'm saying you've got this time clock of 3 seconds to get on your feet, get them into position, go and pull. Okay, second option is you are here, thighs mostly off your stomach. You take your breath, you roll it in, and you go. Or another option, it's in position here. You take your breath here with your hips high, and then you drop your hips, and then you go. Make sense? Okay, all good? Yeah, learning to deadlift without lifting a bar off the ground at all. How good? Yeah. The only thing when you're actually moving the bar is that it has to stay against your body as best you can. Okay, shins, yes, a little bit sensitive for sure. I get you. Most important part, though, is at your knee. You'll notice some people come here, early knee extension, bang. That is really bad. Okay, from here, you want to hold that position, stand up tall. Okay, now all of these movement errors come into play in a different way, but almost every movement error is going to involve the torso changing angle when the bar moves from the ground to your knees. Okay, you should have a leg press, same torso position till you get to your knee, and then you open up like a book. Hips come through, shoulders come back, we stand up tall. But like I said, we do the first half well, second half takes care of itself. All good? Moving on to squats. Amazing. We'll shift this over here. Okay. One little note, I don't really talk about warm-ups, and I do that for a reason, or I suppose I don't do that for a reason. That reason is it's so individual, and if you have nothing going on, you have no injuries or pains, your best warm-up is just to do the thing a little bit lighter than your intended sets. Yeah, research shows 2 to 3 sets at a lighter weight. That's the best thing you could do before doing it. And then if you feel something weird, or you have a back injury, or you have a this, that, or the other, sure, do some specific warm-ups. Other than that, you're pretty good to kick into your movement itself, okay? All right, into squatting. One of the problems that a lot of people come across just in the territory of warm-up is elbow pain when squatting and shoulder pain when squatting. That's because of a lack of ability to externally rotate. This is not a complicated problem to solve. It's your ability to open your pecs and open your lats. So there's only 2 exercises you really need to do in order to open those 2 things and get into a good start position. One is supinated on a bar above you, drop your torso, pull your same side hip away from your shoulder, and you're gonna get a good lat stretch there, okay? That's the one, okay? Second is put your hand on a bar. If it's like wide like this, it's nice, and all you can do is drop your chest forward, okay? Those 2 things, all you need to do. Chest and lats open, you're gonna be able to grab the bar. If you're a really big guy, it's gonna be harder. If you're smaller, it's gonna be easier, simple as that, okay? All right. Then we have 2 positions for the bar when it comes to squatting, and this is totally dependent on what your goals are. Okay? If your goal is athletic, is strongman, is any sort of sport, you're always gonna wanna put the bar in a high bar position, and that means it's on the top of your back. Can someone help me out? Do you wanna help me out for 2 seconds, just to show this? So the 2 positions for the bar on your back, one of them, keep your back here. Yeah, walk forward. Cool, there you go. Okay, one position is on the meat of your traps. The other is on the meat of your rear delts. So if you want to shrug for me, good. One is here and one is here. Okay, everyone's felt the pain. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Everyone's felt the pain of the bar sat. It feels like it sat on your spine. That's because you haven't chosen one or the other, okay? If it's high, it's on your traps. If it's low, it's below that point on your rear delts. If you are looking to squat maximal weight for whatever reason, which could be a health purpose, could be powerlifting, could be strong, whatever, you're gonna always wanna use a low bar position. Okay, conversation returns to moment arms. The moment arm from your shoulders to your hips is going to be less if the bar is further down. That's more leverage, you can lift more weight, okay? All right, now, hand position on the bar is gonna be totally dependent on what your mobility is, and the more mobile you are, the closer you're going to be able to go. The closer you can go, the closer you should go, okay? The reason being, the tighter in we are, the more tight our body can be, the more of a platform the bar has, and the less likelihood that you're gonna collapse your chest when you're squatting, okay? Simple as that. For me, I'm not gonna give a very good demonstration of hands close on the bar because that's just how it goes. Okay, then from there, our goal is basically just to put our hip crease somewhere in around our knees. If you're powerlifting, it has to be below. If you are old, it's going to be above. Does anyone want to take a stab at what kind of depth we should aim to squat to for someone not looking to do it for sport? Parallel, as deep as possible. What's possible? Where do we define possible? Ass to the grass, maybe. Without pain, tension, that's a good one, yeah. Now, remember what I was saying with deadlifts, where we don't actually have the control over our low back position that we think we do? Okay, you're gonna be able to see for yourself. And you're gonna be able to see for yourself because you're gonna start squatting and you're gonna get to a place where your hips no longer want to go further and you start tucking your own butt under yourself. This could be a passive thing or an active thing. If it's active, it's because you don't have the internal rotation to be able to have your hips move into that position. You can work on that. If it's passive, you are not going to be able to go lower anytime you try, and you're going to run into hip impingement, low back problems. There's no real reason for you to be able to desire to push that, okay? So one thing to recognize, anyone heard like, oh, baby squats so well. Like baby squats are perfect. Why do we not all squat like that? Okay, 2 reasons we don't squat like that. Our heads aren't 40% of our body weight in most cases, okay? And Second, as we get older, cartilage never stops growing. Yeah, you know how old people have big noses and ears? Yeah, that's the same principle as every soft tissue in your body that constantly grows and grows and grows. And you can limit that growth if you continually push into that range and stop the cartilage from growing. But if you don't, and you're not an Olympic lifter, and say it's your parents, or as you get older, you just recognize that I don't move the same. That's because that cartilage is growing over your hip, and your hip becomes more stable, but it doesn't move as well. And we're not going to bust up that cartilage over time. So let's not worry about it. If you're not trying to be a power lifter and you can only get to a certain range, just put a box there. You're good to go. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Make sense? Okay. Along the lines of baby squatting, everyone has this idea that you should keep your chest up when you squat. Yeah? Who's heard the cue, keep your chest up? Yeah? Totally wrong, generally speaking. Yeah, this cue is entirely misinterpreted. If you try to keep your chest up when you squat, what then biomechanically has to happen is you got to push your knees forward. And eventually you're going to run out of ankle room. And so you see a lot of novice people like squatting like they're like bopping, like some Eastern European new form of dance. Yeah? And funny enough, this is how a lot of professional athletes in mainstream sports squat, because that's all we know what to do. Yeah? Chest up is still a good cue, but chest up is not relative to the world. Chest up has to be relative to the rest of your torso position, right? So if I squat like this, my chest is down. Yeah, you can see that. But I can squat like this. My chest is up relative to my torso. I'm in a good position, but my chest is pointed at the ground. Okay, so our goal shouldn't be to keep our chest up. Our goal and your thought should be chest doesn't collapse. Okay? Chest doesn't collapse. That's as simple as that. So let's get under the bar. And I'm going to come all the way out here because my shoulders aren't warm. And from here, I'm going to allow my chest to point 3 feet out in front of me because that's how I exist. That's how my body works. And from here, my chest stays up, and that's my squat. All right? What determines how your squat's going to look? Because just like Eddie Hall deadlifting 500, I've got midget friends who squat literally vertically up and down. So how do you determine for yourself what you're going to be able to do? Femur length. Good. Big one. Yeah. Femur length is going to be the number one thing that's going to determine how forward does your chest need to go. What can we look at to see, okay, that is how your body should move into a squat or not move into a squat? Bar path. Bingo. If you look from the side, and this doesn't require expertise, if you look from the side and the bar is not moving generally straight up and down, something is going wrong. And again, we could talk about this for powerlifting and maxing, or we could talk about this as I'm just trying to stay healthy. It's the same exact thing. All right? Oftentimes, the bar is going to shift forward because we don't open our hips, which is going to be my next point. Okay? But you can get anyone to look from the side, or anyone can take a video from the side, and you can see that bar is drifting forward at the bottom. Something is going wrong. Okay, and I'll show you the number one thing that generally goes wrong. So everyone's heard, like, knees don't go over your toes. Quinn, can you just turn that slightly? Everyone's heard knees don't go over your toes. Everyone's also heard that you should drive your knees out, right? Okay, generally good advice, but again, to me, slightly wrong intention. If we drive our knees out, what kind of force is that putting on your knee itself? Yeah, we're now torquing. Yeah, that is not a really nice thing to do under load. Okay, so what do we want to do instead? Well, we want to think of the middle of the earth as a sheet of paper, the middle of the earth between your feet, and we want to rip that open. So instead of thinking my foot's going to rotate if it was in sand, I want to think I'm like a speed skater, and that's going to go straight out if I was on sand. Okay, so it actually looks identical whether I go like that and my foot would go here, or I go like that and my foot would go here. The same thing happens. This has to be an internal thought, okay? And then we pull out the whole time, and our goal should actually be that our hips feel like they're dropping between our knees, not behind our knees, okay? Behind has this collapse happen, and we good morning squat. Between has us staying much more upright, yeah, much more stable, okay? If you squat really, really well, the place that you should feel your squat is right at the top of the hamstring. You should feel like you're sitting into that position, not in your quads, not in your calves, not in your low back, but in the top of your hamstring, okay? Any questions on that? Squat setup, anything like that? Yeah. Great question. This totally depends on what your objective is, okay? Now, there are ways to squat. If you have zero ankle mobility, like Alicia, you can totally squat to depth without your knees traveling forward at all, okay? And everyone can just do this on your own if you want right now. Let's put our feet really, really wide. I want you to sit your hips back, and I want you to squat down to depth. Allow your chest to go forward a bit, and look at the position of your knees, okay? For a lot of people, they won't be forward at all, okay? Very easy to do that, okay? Let's do the same thing. Don't change any thought other than move your feet in a couple of inches, okay? Keep your position the same. All we're thinking about is squatting down. Pull the earth apart and squat down, okay? Where have our knees headed? Okay, now our knees head forward, yeah? There's only two ways for our torso to drop down and for the bar to come down. Either our hips go back or our knees go forward. Biomechanically, those are the two options. And so to answer your question, well, what position is going to be reasonable for you to get down to depth is one question. Are you powerlifting and looking for max weight is one question. Are you looking to exist, generally speaking, healthy in everyday life is another. Are you looking for a sport is another. The only real caveat is if I'm in this position, how far can I get before I'm done? My hips are out of room and I can't get halfway down, okay? Would this, though, be useful if I was a basketball player? Well, for sure. You don't need to squat to depth. To the contrary, if I'm out here and I want to squat max weight and I just want to go there, I can squat max weight. But is that going to translate to my everyday life? Probably not. And so now we go goal dependence. Yeah, and the goal dependent is really the most important thing. And that's that. Yeah. The best starting spot though, if you go like, I'm just a normal person, stop talking about all this weird shit, is the most powerful spot for you. Okay. So the really easy way to do this is as though you're going to do a vertical jump, that's going to be where you're most powerful. So just take 1 step, 2 steps, and we're here. Okay. And then our foot angle is going to be determined by the mobility of our hips. So for me, I would have to come out here, and that's a good starting spot for a squat for me. And then individual variation comes into play. Yeah. One important thing about foot angle as we squat is that as you turn your toes out, it's going to be really useful to get more depth, to be able to squat down, to get more bounce out of the bottom. But it's going to be at the expense of being able to use your glutes. Every muscle is strongest at resting length, and the further we get away from resting length, the more problems we run into trying to contract it. Yeah. If you think bicep is resting length here, and I challenge you to curl from here to here, how much weight could you do compared to if I shorten that muscle and I said, how much weight can you curl from here to here? Way less. Yeah. The physiology of that is that all of our muscles have these cross sections called actin and myosin. And the heads of the actin pull on the myosin, and that's how a muscle's brought together. It's like little bugs crawling across. And the shorter the muscle gets, the more overlap there is, so we have less of those heads pulling across on that muscle to be strong. Okay, so to the point, if we rotate out, all those little muscles in our hips that everyone who has my educational background hyper obsesses over for really stupid reasons, well, they're getting shorter, yeah, and they're not as powerful. So your ability to spread the floor isn't the same. Yeah, now we've got to drive the knees all the way out here as we spread the floor rather than out here. Now, to that point, if you can't squat with your toes forward to depth, whatever your depth is, that's a conversation. And you can play in and around there and just get a friend to watch from the side and go, how do your hips look and how do they feel? You'll probably know. You'll find this position where like, okay, that feels strong. And it generally looks like what I'm squatting for, what the purpose of this squat is for, which is obviously important. Okay? Right, so we put all that together. And one other thing, footwear when squatting, you can wear flats, you can wear no shoes, and both of those circumstances create a flat foot and will put more emphasis on your posterior chain, on your glutes, hamstrings, low back. Or you could wear like squat shoes, quote unquote, that can put more effort on your quads because your knees are going to generally tend to drift forward more. For the vast majority of people, does it really matter? No. Even at the top level of powerlifting, some use flats, some use lifters. I wouldn't really worry about it too much. All right. Okay. So we get set up at the bar. We go as close as possible. We put the bar either on our traps because we want this to translate to sport or to everyday life, or we put it on our rear delts because we want to squat as much as possible. I'll go up for now for the sake of my shoulders. Okay. Now from here, especially when it gets heavy, you just want to get into this spot where you just go 1, 2, and we're into position. Okay. Look down at your feet. You've practiced your squat position. You generally know what your feet look like. Fantastic. And from here, now we apply that same principle as our deadlifts. Our head is above the water. Big breath into our belly. We tilt our pelvis slightly forward. Brace. Drive our ground apart. We split the earth. We drop down into position. We come up. We get a friend looking from the side, say, is that bar generally straight up and down? They say, yes, no. You make any adjustments from there. Okay, and generally speaking, if they say no, the adjustment from there is probably feet a little wider, toes out a little bit more, and you focus on opening the ground. Yeah? Makes sense? Amazing. Just to unpack that a little bit, because everyone's going to probably run into this issue at some point or another. If we don't split the ground appropriately, our hips don't open. If our hips don't open, all we're able to do is hips go back, knees go forward. If our hips go back and our knees go forward, our chest goes forward, and that's when the bar drifts forward. Okay, so oversimplifying, you can say if the bar is drifting forward, you're not opening up as much as you should at the hips. Yeah, to your point, Ed Cohen, his squat cue is spread your taint. Good cue, bit rude, but it is the objective. Spread your taint. Yeah. Ed's a friend of mine. There's like a 5% chance he's watching. Okay, any questions on squatting? Yeah.
It's controversial, but as a trainer, some trainers believe that you should squeeze your glutes on the way up and some don't. So what do you think on that?
Sure, yeah. Look, question is, should you squeeze your glutes on the way up? If you're not squeezing every muscle in your lower half, it's going to be a strange experience. If you're not bodybuilding, don't worry about any muscle doing anything. Just worry about the movement and your body moving as it should. After that, you will figure out the correct mechanics for you to be able to do that movement efficiently. And I actually don't think that's very controversial. I think anyone who varies from that opinion is probably just misguided or wants to be a bodybuilder, which is cool too. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're going to figure it out over time. One really interesting piece of research that I think you guys should know about, it's from running, but applies to lifting and applies to everything. They took 2 groups of people and took them through a running protocol with the goal of improving their running efficiency as much as possible. One of these groups, they instructed exactly how to run in the most efficient manner, gave them regular feedback, and this is what you should be doing. Another group, they just said, go run and figure it out. And the group who went and ran and figured it out ended up with greater success and efficiency than the people who they gave specific advice to, because once you go down the path of advice that's too specific, you lock yourself in and you don't explore for yourself these little movement variations that you can't really see. And the more movement variations you try, the better off you are. The outcome of this is take everything I say, try a couple of things, but the best thing you could ever do is get reasonably good technique and then try it a lot. Do lots of reps, lots of frequency, and that's when a general strength training program to get very strong involves high frequency. It's not 1 leg session a week like bodybuilding. It's 2 squat sessions and a deadlift session a week, lower intensity so that we get those reps in, we get that practice in. Yeah. Okay, we happen to move to bench press. We could do bench press or we could do overhead press. What'd you get? Let's just show of hands. Who wants to do overhead press? Who would rather bench press? 50-50. Perfect. Fuck me. All right, let's just do real fast. I'll run through both. We'll start just general principles of overhead pressing because it is a little bit faster. I already told you guys about shoulders forward and shoulders up. That is a massive cue when it comes to overhead pressing. The really big second thing is when it comes to pressing anything, as I'll talk with bench as well, it's not a straight bar path. With deadlifting and with squats, we want to see that bar moving straight up and down. And this is going to make more sense to those who don't want to be competitive athletes in a second. But if we're pressing up above our head, you think, where does that bar have to start? Well, it has to start in front of my chin. Okay? If I push straight up from in front of my chin, my arm finishes here. And now I have this torque on my arm that's going to try to bring me down. And I'm not very strong like that. Okay? So I have to go from here to here. Okay? So it's coming back over my head. Now, when we push anything back over our head or we push anything in any direction, what we really want to pay attention to is what is the angle of my forearm. The angle of your forearm, that's what direction you're driving the weight in. Okay? So whether you're benching or overhead pressing, you think, if my elbow is directly under my wrist, all I'm able to do is push straight up. There's no way for me to push back. If we go from here to elbows a little bit further forward, well, from here, I now have leverage to push back and up. Okay? There's one thing that has to happen, though, to be able to do that when we overhead press. And it's the most complicated joint in our body, which is the shoulder joint, which is actually 4 joints. Yeah, shoulders, 4 joints. We've got glenohumeral, that is this one that we all think of. We have the AC joint that you only really know if you get hurt. We've got the sternoclavicular joint, and that moves up and down with our shoulder and rotates here. And the last one that we really have to understand is our scapulothoracic joint, or our scapula, how it moves on our torso. Okay, and that's really, really important. So as we go forward and up, one thing that has to happen as well is the edge of our scapula has to come around the side of our body and open up here. So if you see someone overhead pressing, you should see their whole scapula off on the side of their body. Okay? Reason being, if we think of the position of my scapula here, it's pointed straight forward, it's going to rely on the glenohumeral joint to go 90 degrees back. I can't do that, and not many people will be able to do that well. Yeah, and even if you can do it well, the stability is not very good. Yeah, shoulders is the least stable, most mobile joints in the body. That's how it's constructed. It's literally 4 tendons. You cut 4 tendons, and your whole arm would fall off of your body if not for the skin. It literally is that vulnerable. If we go from there to, we take our scapula and we push it around our body. We now angle our shoulder up 30 degrees, and that motion becomes very possible. Okay, really good way to do this. There's some bands that Chelsea has. If you guys want to try this afterwards, if you put a band around your wrists, you pull out and you keep your elbows forward and you drive up. That's the best way to feel that. You guys can probably see this through my shirt. If I go elbows in and I drive my wrists out, you can see I have no choice but to have my scapulas both come up and around my body. When they come up and around, now I have the freedom to be here. That, in my opinion, the most overrated thing people talk about when it comes to a lot of pressing upper body health and fitness, other than pin your shoulders back and down, is thoracic extension. Your thoracic extension is going to be minimal. It just sort of is what it is. We can kind of open the chest. As soon as we do, though, you're going to get into some low back as well. So just think, generally speaking, and very oversimplified, any movement that your shoulder joint can't do, your low back is going to do. Yeah, and that's why you see, if I compete, sometimes I get myself in like this position. It's stronger. It's bad for you. Helps me win. Will not help you live a healthy life. Yeah, not good general advice. Overhead pressing, very, very simple. Does that make sense? Yeah, bench press, there's a little bit more to cover. Would you help me and just grab one of those benches and we'll bring that in here? One thing that I think is interesting to note, thank you, is just the hierarchy of movements when it comes to shoulder safety. And this is an important thing for anyone to understand. Shoulder is one of the most injured joints in the body because of its propensity for mobility. It's a great thing, but it also hurts us. The hierarchy of things that you should do if your shoulders are sore in terms of safety, horizontal pulling is safest. Horizontal pushing is next most safe. Vertical pulling is next, and vertical pushing is sort of the most vulnerable, least safe. Okay? This is a general speaking thing. Oftentimes you would flip the vertical pulling and the horizontal pushing depending on your circumstance. But when it comes to shoulder stability, generally speaking, a horizontal press done well is much safer for your shoulders than an overhead pull done in any way. All righty. Bench pressing. We actually don't bench press at all in strongman shows. But it is a really good accessory exercise. It's a really good thing just to be able to have a low sympathetic load or low mental tax pushing movements. Most important thing when we're getting set up for our bench press is the components of leg drive. And it does vary for people slightly if you're at the top level, but generally speaking, everybody should have an element of leg drive in the bench press. Your goal with leg drive is not to like push your legs and heave your body into the bar. Yeah, at some top levels, yes, that's what the guys do, but it shouldn't be the objective from everyone on day one. What you should be looking to do is create this stability about your whole body so that there's no sort of wiggling around, no moving, and that's coming from your legs. Okay, so what we want to think is our toes are pushing into the ground to push our weight up onto our traps. That is really the objective. Now, to figure out where your feet should be on the bench press, the easiest way is to get someone sat behind you, back to back, and just push against them, move your feet, push in a different spot, and eventually you're going to find this position where, okay, that's where I can push with my feet the most. Okay? When you find that position, for me, it would be somewhere in around here. You're going to lie down onto the bench. You're going to put your hands on the bar. And then from here, this is the only time we want shoulders to be backing down. So I'm going to pull my shoulders onto the bench. I'm going to push my toes into the ground. And now you can see that is just pushing the weight onto my traps. And now from here, I'm in a good start position. Okay? Now, when you lift the bar off, it's really important where we set the safety. Because if you think of the inside border of your shoulder blade, you can only get that on the bench one time. And if you lift off and your shoulders come forward, you can't then pull your shoulder blades back because it's going to be the edge of your shoulder blade trying to tuck back under your body. This is not to set a bench press world record. This is because if your shoulder blades can't go back on the bench, your shoulder has to sit in this slightly forward position. And then what's going to happen? Well, we're going to get to a certain end range, and now our bottom position looks like this rather than like this. And that position puts a lot of strain on the shoulder compared to that opened up position. Okay? So shoulders are backing down. Our shoulder blades are pinned on the bench. We're pushed. Our weight is up onto our traps, and our hands are where they would like to be. Now, where they would like to be depends on goals. Again, unfortunately, generally speaking, the wider you are, the more we're going to use our chest, and generally speaking, your chest is stronger. If you're a big guy, sometimes you bring your arms in, you sit your triceps into your lats, and you get this like spring, but that applies to very, very few people. I didn't get this feeling until I was like 290 pounds. So let's just gloss over that altogether. So from this position, generally speaking, you're going to be somewhere between pinky on the brake and the knurling and index finger on the brake and the knurling. From that position, the bench press is half pull, half push. Okay? We almost pull the bar down to our body and pull the bar this way apart. Some people will say break the bar this way. I don't find that I've experienced anybody who goes like, I have a lot of power doing this. Maybe the fucking arm wrestlers back there. But for most people, that is not really something that's going to generate a lot of torque. Okay? And for most people, the lats are not something you're going to sink your triceps into. And so I think this advice often comes from high-level powerlifters who are 300 pounds who are like, of course I want to dig my triceps into my lats, but it's just not going to happen for most people. So what do we want to do? We want to pull apart. We want to engage our upper back. We want to push our weight onto our traps, and we want to row that bar down to our body and almost open your chest up and pull your chest towards the bar as much as anything. And from here, just like the bottom of a deadlift, we've got this nice spring. Okay? Now, when I talk about rowing the bar into your body and pulling apart and creating all this tension, is this advice just for strength athletes? No, not at all. If we think your first bench press ever, what is our number one thing we want to do? We want to keep the shoulders safe and moving well. How do we do that? Well, it's the most mobile, least stable joint in the body, held on by 4 tendons. 3 of those tendons are external rotation. 1 of these tendons is internal rotation. Generally speaking, if we pull that bar apart, we're bracing that whole shoulder. So we're taking this ball and socket joint that's very, very loose, and all we're doing is taking some of the tendons that cross over and we're pulling in, okay? So we're locking that tendon in, we're locking that joint in. Okay, that's a better spot. You'll be able to bench press more, sure, but you're just not going to be unstable. And that's the whole objective here. Create as much stability as possible so that your chest and your triceps and your shoulders, they can all do the work they want to do, right? So then from here, we get into position. We set our hands on the bar. Our shoulders are back on the bench. We pull our shoulders down with our lats, okay? But only, same intention as deadlifting, only thinking about the shoulder pulling down to the hips internally, not actually on the bar. We squeeze the bar nice and hard. It's over top of us. We roll the bar down to our body. We pull the chest up, super tension. And from here, we extend the elbow, okay? You'll notice I don't think about pushing the bar to the ceiling. If I did, I would do this, and my shoulders are now gone, okay? Only way to get them back is like rock under like that, which you're not going to do under heavy load, okay? Again, I'm pulling out on the bar. I'm pulling my chest up, creating lots of tension. And from here, then I extend the elbow, okay? Now, bar path, very simple. Bar path for the bench press starts directly above the shoulder joint, directly above the collarbones, right below your neck. It ends up on your body dependent on where your hand placement is. Okay, but it's going to end up at a place where your forearm points in the direction that it's going to finish, so it points back up over your collarbones. Okay, that's going to be for you to determine. That's going to be for just one quick eye to go, okay, that looks right. But you're going to have to tuck your elbows a little bit more than you think, and they're going to be slightly in front, if you're looking from the side, slightly in front of the bar so you can push back up over your head. Okay, and the cue for bench pressing, if you want to do it really, really well, is actually not to extend the elbow and push towards the ceiling. It's to extend the elbow and push back towards your head. You'll notice it's really strange. The bar just moves really well when you get into that movement pattern, and accept that it's coming on this angle. Okay, it's coming down your body and up your body. Okay, this is performance, this is safe, this is everything. Okay, of course. Any questions on that one? Yeah.
It's kind of a weird question. For like 2 years straight, my shoulder kills me. I can barely get like just the bar if I go wide, which is odd because I was just listening to you to see if I can figure out something. Or chest when you're wide.
Yes.
Why does my shoulder not hurt narrow?
Moments arms. Question is, why does my chest hurt when I'm wide and not when I'm narrow?
No, my shoulder.
Sorry, your shoulder hurt when you're wide, not narrow, my bad. When we're wide, what's the moment arm on the shoulder? Well, it's pulling straight down. So moment arm is from our hands to our shoulder. That is what? Let's call that a foot. Yeah. If we bring our hands in, the moment arm is now much smaller. Okay. And now we create a different moment arm as we come down our body. So now we're creating a moment arm where it's here to here. But those involve different muscles. So the muscles that are resisting this moment arm out here are compromised. The muscles that are this moment arm in your shoulder, not compromised. And that gets an individual discussion of, okay, now we have some sort of idea of what's going on in your shoulder and some sort of specific rehab that you can be given to help rectify that.
And I can do my bench press like that. I'm fine. Same with axle or the log press. I'm fine. As long as I always keep my hands closed and my elbows tucked.
Yep.
I can do everything. It doesn't bother me.
Yep.
As soon as I have to come out for anything, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense, 100%, because when we're closer, we take the moment arm away from certain elements of our shoulder and put it onto others. So let's say, for example, long head of the bicep crosses the shoulder joints. When we're out here, the long head of the bicep has a substantial role to play with the tension in the shoulder at the bottom when we're flared. When we're tucked in, long head of the biceps has less role to play because now our forearm and our bicep are creating this tension. Less obligation there, more obligation on your triceps. You're almost saying, okay, I'm going to offload long head of the biceps. I'm going to put some load on the tricep. Now, without individual assessment, I'm shooting in the dark a bit, but reasonable scenario. With that tension, offloading long head of the bicep, putting more obligation on the tricep, I feel totally fine because you can push really hard with your triceps without impacting that joint.
What's its back arch look like?
Back arch, good question. Back arch depends on your goals. If you're a competitive powerlifter, the more arch you can use that's legal, the better off you're going to be because it cuts down range of motion. We then get into problems with extension, though, of the back, and does that cause any back complications? But you're going for performance, so we're going to accept some level of injury and health complication or risk, I suppose. If you're an ordinary person, you should aim for a normal or slightly more than normal arch of your low back. With pushing your toes into the ground, getting weight onto your traps, you might have a little bit more extension, but you shouldn't feel like you're overly flared in any way. You shouldn't feel tension in your hips or in your low back when you do this movement. You just feel that you're pushing into the ground and you feel stable. That should be the ultimate goal. Okay. Well, we're open in the gym now. You guys are free to do whatever you would like to train. Pull me for any individual advice, anything that you guys want. Again, there's arm wrestling table, there's the supplements there, there's the clothing bin there. We're doing a raffle. There's no obligation for you guys to spend any money or do anything at all other than train, have fun, enjoy your time. Use me as a resource, use each other as a resource, and we'll go from there. Yeah? Amazing. Thank you very much, guys. Boy. Thank you, live stream. We'll catch you soon. We'll catch you on Tuesday.
to me, tell them pipe down. Or it's lights out, zeros on the debit, baby, all I do is swipe now. Gucci sweater 5,000, stunning, buzzing. I be going up, no ceiling. Wow, ballin', running, getting to the paper, I'm peeling out. They gon' know me as legendary. You in the stands, I ain't need no commentary. If you the competition, you gon' get buried. I don't cheat on the game, we getting married. They gon' know me as legendary.